The roar of engines filled the summer air as a line of gleaming motorcycles rolled into the parking lot of a roadside diner. The men astride them were big, rough-looking, leather-clad and tattooed, members of the Iron Shields, a motorcycle club known for their intimidating looks but misunderstood hearts. They had gathered for a charity ride to raise money for a local children's hospital, their laughter echoing off the chrome and asphalt. None of them knew that within minutes, their day would turn into something that would change their lives and save someone else. Out of nowhere, a tiny figure broke through the haze of sun and exhaust. A little girl in a torn red dress came running across the parking lot barefoot, her face streaked with tears and dirt. Her sobs cut through the deep rumble of engines. Every head turned as she stumbled toward them, her small hands trembling and her breath ragged with fear. The bikers froze, exchanging uncertain glances. Then her desperate voice pierced the silence. "Please, they're beating my mama, please help." For a moment the entire lot went silent. Even the engines seemed to hold their breath. Then, without hesitation, one of the bikers, Grayson, the club's leader, dropped to one knee, meeting her at eye level. His heart clenched at the sight of her tiny frame shaking uncontrollably, her words spilling out between gasps. Behind her, a faint bruise was visible on her arm, as though someone had grabbed her too hard. She couldn't have been older than 5. Before we go deeper, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of standing up for what's right, please take a second to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel. Your support helps us keep telling true stories that remind the world goodness still exists. Grayson's jaw tightened. "Where is she, sweetheart?" he asked softly. The little girl pointed down a dusty road toward a cluster of rundown houses near the edge of town. Without another word, the bikers mounted their motorcycles. The engines thundered to life like a storm rolling in, echoing through the small-town streets. The girl clung to Grayson's vest as he lifted her onto his bike. Her tears soaked into the leather patch that read "Iron Shields, we protect our own." They roared down the road as the girl sobbed quietly against his chest, whispering, "Please hurry, he's gonna kill her." The words hit him like a knife. When they reached the small, decaying trailer park, the scene before them made Grayson's stomach twist. Through the open doorway of a rusted trailer, a man's furious voice echoed, followed by a woman's cry of pain. Grayson parked the bike and handed the trembling girl to another biker. "Stay with her," he said firmly. The rest followed as he marched up the steps, every muscle in his body burning with controlled rage. Inside, they found a man towering over a woman curled on the floor, his hand raised again to strike. Grayson grabbed the man's arm mid-swing and yanked him back, slamming him against the wall so hard the drywall cracked. The abuser cursed and swung wildly, but Grayson didn't flinch. The other bikers surrounded him, their presence alone enough to freeze him in place. The woman, her face bruised, her lips split, looked up in disbelief. She had thought no one would ever come for her. Her eyes met her daughter's, who was now being gently held by one of the bikers outside, and she burst into tears. Grayson called the sheriff, making sure everything was done by the book. They waited until the man was in cuffs, still cursing and spitting venom as he was taken away. But it was over. For the first time in years, it was finally over. The woman's name was Emily. She could barely stand, trembling from both pain and shock. Grayson helped her outside, where the sunlight hit her face, and she saw her daughter safe in another biker's arms. The little girl ran to her, and they collapsed into each other's embrace. The sight made even the toughest of the bikers turn away to hide the tears in their eyes. The Iron Shields didn't just leave it at that. They stayed. They cleaned up the trailer, replaced the broken door, and filled the pantry with groceries from the diner they had been at just minutes before. They made sure Emily and her daughter had a safe place to stay, a small apartment owned by a friend of the club. And when the little girl clung to Grayson's leg, refusing to let go, he promised her softly, "No one's ever gonna hurt your mama again, not while we're around." That night the story spread through the small town like wildfire. At first, people were skeptical. Bikers had a rough reputation after all. But when they saw what the Iron Shields had done, the entire town's perception shifted. Neighbors began donating clothes and toys for Emily's daughter, and the diner owner offered her a job. For the first time in years, Emily smiled without fear. A week later, the Iron Shields held another charity ride, but this time they rode for something more personal. They rode for Emily and her little girl. They called it Ride for Hope. The event raised enough money to help dozens of families escaping domestic violence, but for Grayson, it wasn't about the money or the recognition. It was about that moment, the look on that little girl's face when she saw her mother safe. It was a look he'd never forget. He remembered how his own mother used to cry behind closed doors when his father drank too much. He'd been too small to protect her back then, too weak to stop the shouting. He carried that guilt for decades. That day, when the little girl ran into the parking lot, it was like life had given him a second chance to do what he couldn't as a boy, and he took it. Over the next few months, the Iron Shields quietly started a foundation, the Little Red Dress Project, named after the little girl who had the courage to run for help. It offered shelter, legal aid, and counseling to victims of domestic abuse. Word spread far beyond their small town, inspiring other motorcycle clubs across the country to do the same. Soon, what began as one act of bravery from a crying child and a group of misunderstood men became a movement. One evening, as the sun set over the open road, Emily and her daughter visited the bikers at their clubhouse. The girl ran up to Grayson, now wearing a patched vest with honorary member stitched just above a small red heart. She hugged him tightly, whispering, "Mama says you're our angel." Grayson smiled, blinking away tears. "No," he said quietly, "you were the angel, kiddo. You saved her." Life slowly rebuilt itself. Emily started working full-time, her laughter filling the small apartment they now called home. Her daughter went to school, proudly showing off the small leather bracelet the bikers had made for her, engraved with the words "Stay Brave." Grayson would often ride by their home on weekends, just to make sure everything was okay. He never stayed long, never wanted praise. But every time he saw the girl wave from the window, he felt something inside him heal. That one day, that one desperate cry, had turned strangers into family. Weeks turned into months, and the story of the Iron Shields and the little girl in the red dress became local legend. Reporters came, donations poured in, and hundreds of lives were touched because one child refused to give up, and because a group of men who looked tough on the outside had hearts big enough to care. It wasn't about being heroes. It was about doing what was right when it mattered most. About showing the world that strength isn't in fists or tattoos, it's in compassion, in courage, in the decision to act when others might look away. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us continue spreading stories that remind people real kindness still exists in this world. And before you go, tell us in the comments, what would you have done if that little girl ran to you for help? Because sometimes, the smallest voices carry the loudest cries for justice, and it's up to us to listen.